the stadium fell silent. 10,000 fans held their breath. One man sat frozen, his jaw dropped, unable to process what his eyes had just witnessed. Michael Downey, the president of Tennis Canada, a man who has shaped the sport for over 2 decades, was completely speechless. On the court below, a 20-year-old Filipina named Alex Eala had just done the unthinkable. She had silenced the American powerhouse Alycia Parks in a display of pure, unadulterated brilliance. This was not just a match. This was a changing of the guard. And Downey, the architect of Canadian tennis, could only watch in stunned silence as history unfolded right before his eyes. The National Bank Open in Toronto is one of the most prestigious stops on the WTA Tour, and the atmosphere inside Sobeys Stadium was electric. A sold-out crowd of 10,000 had packed the stands, with a sea of Philippine flags waving proudly throughout the arena. They had come to witness something special, and they got exactly that. On one side stood Alycia Parks, the big serving American who had already beaten Eala once before at the Australian Open earlier that year. Parks, ranked number 25 in the world, came into the match with a booming serve and a swagger that had carried her to the top of the sport. But standing across the net was Alex Eala, the 20-year-old Filipina who had just captured the biggest title of her career in Washington, becoming the first Filipina to win a WTA singles championship. The contrast between the two players was stark. Parks with her raw power, and Eala with her precision and relentless baseline consistency. Michael Downey, seated in the VIP section, had seen countless matches in his long career. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. The stage was set, the crowd was roaring, and the tennis world was about to witness a seismic shock that would leave the president of Tennis Canada utterly speechless. From the very first point, it was clear that Alex Eala had come to Toronto with a mission. The opening set was a masterclass in controlled aggression. Eala, the number 25 seed, immediately began applying relentless pressure on Parks's delivery, forcing the American into a string of unforced errors. Parks managed to hold serve in the early games, but Eala was simply unstoppable. She broke through in the 4th game, using her aggressive returns to force errors and claim the first break of the contest. From there, the Filipina phenom seized complete control, reeling off 5 consecutive games to wrap up the opener in just 31 minutes. The scoreline read 6-1, but the numbers didn't tell the full story. Parks had fired 4 aces, but she committed a staggering 18 unforced errors, unable to handle Eala's depth and consistency. Meanwhile, Eala remained a rock, limiting her mistakes to just 7 unforced errors. As the first set concluded, the crowd erupted, waving their flags and chanting Eala's name. In the stands, Michael Downey leaned forward in his seat, his expression shifting from casual observer to genuine intrigue. He had seen rising stars before, but this was different. This young Filipina was playing with a maturity and poise that belied her age, and Downey knew that he was witnessing something extraordinary. If the first set was a masterclass from Eala, the second set was a gritty display of resilience from Alycia Parks. The American, known for her booming serve, refused to go down without a fight. Both players held serve comfortably through the opening games, but Parks began to find her rhythm, saving 4 breakpoints in a tightly contested 5th game to edge ahead 3-2. The second set appeared destined for a tiebreak, with neither player yielding on serve through the opening 9 games. But in the 10th game, Parks finally broke through, capitalizing on a momentary lapse from Eala to take the set 6-4. The stadium fell quiet for the first time. The Filipino fans who had been so vocal in the first set were now holding their breath. Eala had avenged her Australian Open loss? Not yet. Parks had proven that she was not going to be steamrolled. On the sidelines, Michael Downey watched with intense focus. He had seen many matches swing on moments like this. The question now was whether the young Filipina could regroup. As the players prepared for the deciding set, Downey sat on the edge of his seat, his hands clasped together. The drama was only beginning, and the man who had seen it all was completely absorbed in the battle unfolding before him. The third set was a roller coaster of emotions, and the crowd was on its feet from the very first point. Eala came out firing, breaking Parks in the opening game and following up with a confident hold to claim a 2-0 lead. But Parks, showing the heart of a champion, responded immediately, breaking Eala to level the set at 2-2. The momentum shifted back and forth like a pendulum. But then, Eala did something remarkable. She raised her intensity to a level that Parks simply could not match. The Filipino star broke through once again, forcing the American into a string of errors to secure a decisive break. Eala then composed herself and held serve to restore her two-game cushion at 4-2. The end was near. Eala broke Parks once more in the seventh game, and moments later, she stood on the brink of victory. With the final point a scorching forehand winner, Eala sealed her 6-1 4-Texas 2-2 triumph. The stadium erupted, the Philippine flags waved furiously. The crowd roared with a deafening celebration. But amidst the chaos, one man remained motionless. Michael Downey was speechless. His mouth was slightly open, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had just witnessed a 20-year-old from the Philippines conquer the American powerhouse in a display of pure grit and determination. And for the first time in his long career, the president of Tennis Canada had no words. In the minutes following the match, the Sobeys Stadium was a hive of activity. Alex Eala, still catching her breath, was mobbed by fans and media alike. She addressed the crowd in her native tongue, her voice filled with emotion. Kamusta tayo? Iwagawe inienyo ang watawat ng Pilipinas, Toronto. She spoke of her gratitude to the Filipino community, saying, Lingo kayang nakita. Sinu supportako. Proud, nay proud, nay proud, nay proud. Ako din majing Pinoy. The victory was more than just a win, it was a statement. Eala had avenged her Australian Open defeat, improved her record against Parks to 2-1, and extended her North American hard-court winning streak to 6-0. She became the first Filipino player, male or female, to win a main draw match at the National Bank Open. As the celebration continued, reporters scrambled to get a comment from Michael Downey, but the Tennis Canada president was nowhere to be found. Witnesses say he remained in his seat for several minutes, staring at the court, completely lost for words. When he finally stood up, he simply shook his head in disbelief and walked away. The man who had built Canadian tennis, who had seen legends come and go, was left utterly speechless by a 20-year-old Filipina who had just announced herself as a force to be reckoned with. Alex Eala had not just won a match. She had silenced a legend, and in doing so, she had written her name into the history books. If you enjoyed this latest tennis update and want to stay ahead of the biggest stories in the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe the channel right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the action. See you in the next video.